How's it going, guys? Today I'm showing you how to make dark UK garage like Prozak. Today we're looking at his track Holy Spirit. This is what you have made by the end of the video. It's got three main elements: the drums, the two bass layers, and the vocal. So the drums from this track are from a break. I found the loop quite harsh, so what I did was add this Soothe 2, which helps to get rid of some of the harsh frequencies. Alternatively, you can just use an EQ and you can scoop out the different frequencies. It would look a little something like this. And you can also make other cuts. And really take out those harsh frequencies. Now we can move on to the bass. The bass is in two separate layers. I'm going to show you how to make each of them from scratch. So just to remind you what it sounds like, the first hit is this, and the second is this sort of deep wobble bass. Let's firstly have a look at the MIDI. So we're in the key of E minor. So the first hit just has the note E, and the second is an E, but then also dips down to D and up to G right at the end. But yeah, the notes are really simple and it sort of just stays around the root note. Great, so both of the bass sounds are actually presets for my new UK Garage Volume 3 pack. You can get this from the link in the description. The pack has over 50 sick presets for making dark UK Garage and focuses on artists like Prozak, Bakey, and many others. You can get it from the link in the description. As always, this project's available on my Patreon, so head over to there if you want to download the project. Great, so let's start on the main bass of the track. I'm going to show you how to make this from scratch. So go to initiate preset. We're then going to want two analog BD sines. Get one in each oscillator. Then going to want to pitch them down by 3 octaves. You want to turn this level down. You then want to turn the FM on, so FM from B, and put this on up 2 octaves. So just to show you, I'll make sure you've got this level on 0. So what this is doing is FM synthesizing from oscillator B. So sort of merging and forcing the waves together. Great, we then want to focus our attention on LFO 1. So if we move the shape of it like this, we can add a little curve as well. You also want to make sure that the rate is on half and put it on trigger. We then want to drag this and put it on the FM, so like I've shown you before. As this plays, the FM increases, which gives it that wobble. Let's also turn on this filter, so let's go for an 18. You could also have a 24, but let's just, or a 12, but yeah, let's go for 18. We want to bring that cutoff down and add this same LFO to the cutoff. Put it to about 26, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact. Also, you can play around with this after and it will change the tonalities and the amount of frequencies that you're letting in. So let's also go to the drive, same sort of situation. Sounding good already, so let's make sure it's mono, so in the voicing select mono. Now let's move our attention to the sub. Let's pitch it down by 3 octaves. Chuck the LFO on there. So this just adds even more sub. Great, and now we've got that, let's focus our attention on LFO 2. Great, so LFO 2 is not doing as much as LFO 1, and this is more of like a style choice. So it's small elements like this which make your sound sort of stand out. So I think in the original I just put it on the fat and then added a little bit like this. So you can play around that. Great, so now let's look at the effects. Great, so let's start with a compressor. Bring the threshold down a little bit. I mean, not obviously going to explain what a compressor is, but yeah, this just helps to keep the sound at more of like a balanced level. So then let's also add an EQ, take out some of the low end. This is optional. You could obviously do this externally with like an EQ8 or something like that, and you definitely have more control. I don't really like the the Serum EQ as much as the EQ8 because you don't have as much control, but it is definitely quite handy to have. So let's also boost it a little bit. Nice, that gives it a nice little bit of more high end. So let's then put this reverb on. Make sure it's on hall mode. Let's lower that. Let me bring up some of that low cut. Yeah, sounds good to me. Next, let's add this hyper. Bring down the hyper and let's just use the dimension. I don't really use the hyper, I use the dimension a lot though. I think it's really good for adding nice character. Great, so that is pretty much the sound. Obviously this is not going to sound exactly like my other version because I've obviously spent more time tweaking it and things like that. Let's just hear the difference though. Right, so yeah, ours definitely needs a little bit more FM. So let's add more FM. Let's also add some distortion. Too much FM. Bring up the filter. There you go. So it's got a slight click. So on envelope 1, let's take up the attack a little bit. Bring up some release. So yeah, that sounded really similar now. Obviously you can spend a lot more time tweaking stuff and things like that, but yeah, that sounds pretty much identical and you wouldn't really hear the difference at all unless you play them side by side. But in the scheme of a track, they're not going to sound anything apart. But yeah, as I said, if you want to download 50 presets just like this, some even better, which I'll be covering in other videos, then you can get them from my new UK Garage Pack. The link for that is in the description. Next, let's move on to the second bass. I'm not going to run this from scratch, otherwise I think the video is going to be a bit too long-winded, but I'm going to go through it with you now. So yeah, this is the preset Adidas, and what we've got is this. So you go to basic shapes. I don't really know what this shape is called, but if you go all the way to the end, then that pulls up. In oscillator B, we've then got this DS, sort, and triangle. This is also from Analog. If we have a look at envelope 2, this is doing most of the work. So let's go to the effects, and what this is doing is controlling the filter cutoff. So instead of using this filter, we're using the one in the effects, so it shows along here. The reason for that is that it means that it can go through the distortion and the reverb before going through the filter, whereas this would be before going through the distortion. So basically, in terms of the routing, it would go oscillator A, it goes sub, noise, into oscillator A, oscillator B, and then the filter, and then it would pop onto the effects and go from the top down. Whereas this way, we get to add the distortion and the reverb, and then the filter last. And it just sort of creates some sort of different tonalities and behaviors. So yeah, that's why we've done that. And yeah, so it's got a slight bit of attack. If I get rid of it, yeah, this sort of makes it a bit nicer and pleasant and more like brassy. So yeah, and we've got this quite long decay with like a quite high sustain at 40%. If I get rid of that, it's a lot quicker. As if it's more up, it's a lot more growly. Yeah, in terms of everything else, envelope 1 looks like this, which really hasn't changed. And this macro, this is on the distortion. So there's actually 3 filters in Serum. A lot of people complain, oh, there's only 1 filter, this filter, but there's 2 in the effects. This one, obviously, filter, But then there's also one in the distortion unit, and if you put it on post, then you'll see what I mean. It's like a full filter. So that's how we're using it. Yeah, so this macro 1 is on this, so that's the filter cutoff. So the more up, the more muted it is, and the more down, the more high end's coming in. So I think it sounds good about halfway, but it depends on the context of the track. Great guys, thank you very much for watching. Please comment down below which videos you want to see next. Cheers.